Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. Yesterday I wrote an article and did a video called "What to Say in 16 Ticklish Situations," and a reader of that article said he wrote me a note and said, "I'm really curious what you have to say about these 9 additional ticklish situations." So here I go. The first situation he mentioned was that you're ghosted. I probably I really hate being ghosted, so I'll start by saying that. But we live in an American society where you're really not allowed to show anger except in the most extreme circumstances, unless you're a person of color or a woman who's claiming racism and sexism. Then you can be as angry as you want, but that's a whole other topic. But if I'm ghosted, first of all, I have to recognize that there could be some extenuating circumstance. It's not just rudeness. And so I'll probably, whatever the mode of communication I was expecting, would be to say something like, let's say it's a business thing. I would say something like, you would mention that you'd be getting back to me about that job I interviewed for in a week. It's been 2 weeks and I haven't heard from you. So like any good employee, I'm taking the liberty of following up. Any news yet? I should reiterate that I'm as interested as ever in the job, hoping to hear from you. So, it's unfortunate. It's like, if you're an anger-prone person, you want to punch him in the mouth for keeping you on edge there for an extra week for no good reason. Well, there could be a good reason, but the least he could have done, or she, is if it was going to take an extra week, the least he or she should have done was send you a quick email and say, hey, I know I said a week, it's going to be another week, but too many people are rude, or forgetful. So you've got to be nice. You're going to end up paying a bigger price. Now, of course, if it's somebody who's routinely doing that to you and they're just irresponsible and it's in your personal life, that's probably somebody you want to excise from your life. Okay, so those are my thoughts on how I'd respond to being ghosted. Another one of the 9 things that this reader asked me to say how I would address is when you're being pressured to buy something or donate to a cause. The same thing. A salesman is in the for-profit sector, or fundraisers in the non-profit sector. They're both selling. So I'd say something like, it depends on the situation. Now, I'm a guy who normally hates, just doesn't want to deal with salespeople. I want to make an independent decision, perhaps based on my own internet research or whatever. The last thing I want to do is be coerced by somebody who's been highly trained to psychologically manipulate me into buying, which they are, by the way, really. They all get this sales training, which is all about, the psychology of getting somebody slowly to get them to buy into to your proposition and say yes. So I don't want that. So, but normally I won't want to get into it and say, gee, I really need to. I'd rather not deal with a salesperson or a fundraiser. I'm going to do my independent research on that and shut up. I'd probably say something like that. And if they were pushy, I'd say, I'm really kind of a salesperson or fundraiser's nightmare. I just almost never respond to a salesperson. Every once in a while where the information I can't get off the internet or whatever is insufficient, then I guess okay. But I think for both you saving you and me time both, let's just say goodbye. So something like that. The third thing that this reader asked me to describe how I'd respond, and say as a person who just won't stop talking. They're long-winded. They're Billy Blowhard or Kathy, Chatty Kathy. The reality is that many people are long-winded because of one of a number of reasons. One is they're not intelligent enough to edit well on the fly, and so they're just not concise. Other people are just self-absorbed, and they are oblivious to the fact that they're boring the pants off of you. But if I felt somebody was long-winded, usually after, frankly, about 1 minute, an utterance of 1 minute, I'd probably interrupt and say, so in essence you're saying X. And I might even say then, there was something I wanted to run by you. So I could change the topic and get off of their narcissism. Of course, if I'm interested, I might, after summarizing say, okay, so is that the essence of what you're saying? And do you want to tell me about some little part of X. So I'm focusing them. And of course, again, if somebody is endlessly, giving these 3, 5, 10-minute monologues, that's a person I want to, if possible, minimize interaction with, whether it be at work. And if I have some discretion, like in a personal situation, maybe excise them from my life. Okay. I'm looking at the list of things that he asked me to say what I would say. Next one, this reader suggested I describe how I would react would be if someone smells bad. So I'd probably say something like, and I've actually had to say this to a few of my clients, because my job is to tactfully give them feedback so they can be more successful. I'm a career and personal coach, if you don't know. Anyway, but let's say it's a coworker or a friend or whatever. I would probably say something like, this is very awkward for me even to bring up, but it comes from a good place. I'm just trying to be helpful. A number of the people in the office, as well as me, have noticed that you often have BO, and I just thought I'd bring it to your attention. And then I wouldn't ask for an apology or anything like that, and I'd probably walk away. I might just end it even with another apology. I'm sorry, Bert. Maybe it's more personal than I need it to be, but again, it's with good intentions. And then I'd probably walk away. Okay, now let's say a person's made an unfair comment. Let's take on an issue du jour: sexism. While both sexes can be guilty of sexism these days, at least in terms of what is spoken aloud, it seems it's much more socially acceptable for a woman to say something sexist about men than a man to say something sexist about women. And so, let's say the person is a woman who's in the break room and they're chatting and whatever, and I hear them say, "Yeah, most men are jerks," something like that. I'd probably, if I had the courage, Jesus, can I really say I would? I don't know. I'd want to say, to say that kind of a broad generalization is no more justified than saying that all blacks are whatever. Please think about it. Things are hard enough between the genders at this point. Statements like that only make things more difficult for communication between the genders and increase the enmity, and I don't think that's a good thing. And then I'd again not expect an apology. I'd probably walk out at that point. The next of the 9 items that the reader asked me to describe how I'd handle was if you have an adult child who's failed to launch. It's a pretty common situation, and they're all different, of course, depending upon the reasons the young adults fail to launch. But a typical kind of thing I would probably say is something like, you're probably sick and tired of us talking about this, but I'm your dad and I love you, and so I feel I got to give it another try. You say you want to be self-supporting, and at the college, you went to the college counselor, and she said that you'd be fine in a career in which you were working in the nonprofit sector and any kind of a people-centric job, and yet you really haven't done much. You sleep late, you watch TV, play video games, hang out with your friends, vape, and you admit even that your LinkedIn profile is basically a shell and that you're not really networking much. You only applied for a couple of jobs and did a kind of a desultory job of that. Are you really ready to launch your career now, or what? I want to listen. What's going on, really? I'd probably say something like that. The next thing the reader asked me to say what I would say is somebody who's poorly managing their health condition. So let's just say, for argument's sake, the person the doctor told him he has to lose weight. He's got diabetes or heart cardiovascular disease or whatever. And then last night, brought it to a boil because he or she at 10 o'clock called Papa John's and ordered an extra large pizza with sausage and extra cheese. And he ate half the thing before he went to bed. So either then or the next day, if I saw the person, this is somebody I was perhaps living with, I would say something like, kind of similar to the BO thing. I know health is a very personal issue, but as you know, I care about you, and I did notice you ordered that pizza last night and ate a lot of it. And I probably use that tone, not an accusatory tone, but matter-of-fact tone. And you've said you don't, that you'd like to live longer. Do you want to talk about it? And I'd probably leave it at that. Those kind of situations, you can confront and force them to talk, but I'm agnostic on how well that works. I know that's used in confrontations and in some of these ranches for drug abusing kids, but I don't know if that's my way. I don't know. I'd probably ask them if they wanted to talk about it and say, and if they said no, it's fine. I'd say, well, I'm here if and when you want to. I'm maybe too wussy, but that's probably what I would do. Okay, now speaking of mind-altering substances, the next item that this reader wanted me to describe how I would handle was, let's say you were at a party or whatever, and or your girlfriend or boyfriend is pressuring you to use a mind-altering substance of some sort. It could be alcohol, it could be weed, it could be whatever. So if it's at a party or whatever, and they're passing around a joint or a vape pen or whatever they do these days, I'd probably say, I'm not up for it tonight. Just keep it real brief. But if I got some additional pressure, I'd say something like, I have a little problem with weed, and so I'm trying to avoid it. Thanks. Again, keeping it brief, putting it on yourself, not blaming them, and that's probably what I do. Now, the last thing that he said he wanted to hear how I'd handle. If I've seen something unethical, what would I do? So again, while I'm on this drug theme, I'm going to use it again, because I am kind of an anti-drug person, having both reviewed the literature for Time magazine and otherwise, as well as seeing in my private practice the impact of cognitive impairment and motivation and the depression and even social anxiety increase that seems likely attributable to their marijuana use specifically. I don't know what else some of them are doing. But in any case, let's say my neighbor, I walk my dog, and this is the truth, I walk my dog late every night. And it is really true that as it happens, around the block, right around the corner, there is a house in which, no matter how late I'm out there with the dog, I'm seeing very often somebody walk in, sometimes stagger up the stairs of this other house, and to be honest, he goes in the door for a second, and then he comes right out a minute later and goes back to his car, very often a car with loud music on. So I have reasonable presumption that he's a drug dealer. And so if I could screw up the courage, I'd probably say something like, I know it's none of my business, but to be honest, I'm, having spent a lot of time both reviewing literature on drugs and being a career counselor to people who have used drugs and paid a hell of a price, and even been victims of car accidents with people who were impaired while driving and lost a limb. Some, not my clients, but obviously people have died from fatal accidents with impaired people. I felt kind of almost an ethical obligation to come here and talk to you. And you can blow me off. But I guess I'm wondering, I guess, and this is really tough, I'd say, I'm just concerned about you, your customers, and whether this really is the best way for you to make your living. And if you want to talk about it, fine. If not, not. And then I walk away. Now, if this was probably my ethics, if I noted it continue, well, I recognize you're not going to stop the drug problem by, calling the cops on one person. I think my ethics would require me to call the cops on this person. Anyway, that's a side note, but whatever. So those are my best shots at what I would say in response to those 9 ticklish situations. And again, I'm never sure. You can't be sure you're right, and it's going to vary with the situation. But, maybe there's some value in this. In any case, I welcome your giving a thumbs up, a thumbs down, writing a comment, sharing it, subscribing to my channel, and certainly I appreciate your watching in any event. I'm Marty Nemko. Thank you for watching.